What's up, snappers? Welcome back to the channel. DDDREWSKY here. Today we're going to be looking at the brand new card Diamondback to see if she's worth your precious resources. We're going to be looking at her key Synergies Counters and some decks that I brewed for her. But wait, before we do that, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel. I do weekly reviews of the brand new card in Marvel Snap, so if you don't want to miss out, hit that notification bell right now. Now let's get back into it. Now the question is, who is Diamondback? Let's take a look. So Diamondback in Marvel Snap is a 3-cost, 3-powered card with the ongoing ability of enemy cards here afflicted with negative power have an additional -2 power. I believe she might be a staple in Affliction or a Toxic style type of list. Ajax and Hazmat are great synergies with her, and there are some other possibilities with her as well. So I believe that she can be very strong. She's kind of a win more card if you want to inflict more damage to your opponents. All right, now let's break down the pros and cons about Diamondback. Let's take a look. The first thing I want to talk about is that she's a potential 311 card. If you can fill up that lane and make sure you inflict damage to your opponent, she's potentially an 8+ powered card, which is crazy for a 3-cost card. I believe her power is insane for that cost level. Another pro about her is that win more card in afflicted lane. If you want to make sure you win that lane, more than likely you'll win with her. It's very similar to Man-Thing when you really think about it. So another good thing about her is that Toxic is very strong of an archetype. You see it around everywhere. Ajax, Hazmat, Man-Thing, US Agent, those type of cards are everywhere in the meta. So she could be a staple in those type of decks, and she'll be popular in a way, right? So she only affects the enemy side, which is awesome, right? It's not like Man-Thing, it's not like US Agent where they afflict damage to your cards, but she only affects the enemy side, which is awesome. So you don't have to really worry about the power being reduced on your side. She has easy counters. There are cards that I will mention in the future that can counter her very easily, and she is a target. A lot of people are going to be going after her, or there's a card that can hard counter her, and I will explain later. So another con about her is that she isn't really necessary at times. I feel like, again, just like I mentioned, she's a win more card. She could be replaced by other cards, and again, it really depends on what is in your list. So strength really depends on what the enemy has on their side. It really depends on what your enemy is playing or what you can force your enemy to play in that lane. It really depends if your opponent avoids that lane because they see Diamondback there. So you definitely have to be worried about that. Another negative con about her is that she might be the 13th card in the list. I mentioned this as in she could be replaced by other cards that have more utility. I think, again, she is definitely a win more card. She isn't really necessary in a lot of decks. So it really depends on how you want to play the game and if you want to have that lane as yours, just like Man-Thing, for example. Now let's look at the key synergies and counters for Diamondback. Let's take a look. So the first synergy that I want to talk about is Hazmat. Hazmat, of course, afflicts negative damage to your opponent's side and your side, and that can boost up the power in Diamondback. Of course, Diamondback loves negative power, so Hazmat is a great synergistic piece for her. So Man-Thing is another synergy with Diamondback, having that negative damage afflicted to your opponent's side. More and more power technically gets on your side. Of course, the cards don't get power on them, but the negative damage is insane with those two combined in the same lane. Ajax is another great piece with Diamondback. They definitely will work in tandem, especially with the decks that I brewed. I'll show you in the future. But yeah, their synergy is insane. Now let's talk about the counters for Diamondback. Luke Cage, of course, is a huge counter against Diamondback, and it's a synergistic piece with Diamondback. But if your opponent is playing Luke Cage, it's a hard counter for Diamondback and just the archetype in general. So you want to make sure you build around your list to either disable Luke Cage or to counter him. But yeah, Luke Cage is a huge counter, and you definitely be afraid of him. Rogue is another huge counter for Diamondback, stealing that ability and then just afflicting it back onto you. You definitely don't want that to happen, so be careful of Rogue. And Enchantress is a huge counter against Diamondback or any ongoing card. All right, now let's take a look at the decks that I brewed. I think they're pretty fun and competitive. Let's take a look. So the first deck that we have is called Toxic Diamondback. This is my take on the Ajax Hazmat Affliction deck. So for turn one, of course, Zabu is #1 priority to discount cards like Iron Lad, Malekith, Man-Thing. Hazmat, you definitely want to save for the later turns. I'll explain later on how to use her, but more than likely, either use her on turn 5 or 6. On turn 2, Scorpion is a great candidate to be played on curve just to start afflicting negative damage to your opponent's hand. And then whenever they play their cards, you get a benefit from that, right? US Agent, more than likely you want to play him on the later turns just to surprise your opponent, but you could play him on curve. Cassandra Nova, Luke Cage, Diamondback, and Red Guardian are all great options to be played on turn 3. It really depends on which one you pull first. But more than likely, you probably want to save Luke Cage for the later turns just to surprise your opponent. Definitely want to set up Diamondback in a certain lane just to start getting that lane prepared for negative damage. Red Guardian is just basically to counter the mirror matchup to disable their Luke Cage or any other cards that are in their list. Iron Lad, you can really hit any of these cards. There's really no bad hits with Iron Lad. Malekith is awesome this list just to pull cards out early. Any of these cards are fine other than maybe Zabu, Scorpion, or Red Guardian, but all the other candidates that are 3 costs and less is totally fine to get pulled by Malekith. Man-Thing, just like I mentioned, is a great synergistic piece with Diamondback. So it really depends on which lane you play Man-Thing, but you could afflict a lot of damage with Man-Thing. So for turn 5 or 6, you can run Ajax. You definitely want to have him as your big power finisher. Definitely pairing him up with Hazmat is awesome. All right, now let's take a look at my second list. So this list is called Diamondback Ongoing. So this is my take on an ongoing list mixed with adding some toxic cards in it. The ideal goal of this list is to throw down as much ongoing cards on the board as possible, afflict negative damage to your opponent, and even boost the power on your ongoing cards at the end. So for turn 1, Ant-Man is a great on-curve play just to play him on a lane where you think you can fill in the entire lane. Hazmat, definitely save for the later turns. 5 or 6 is totally fine. Definitely save it for the later turns as a surprise play. Sam Wilson, Captain America on turn 2 is definitely preferred option because your shield is going to be out on the board, and plus the shield is an ongoing card, so it could definitely get some benefit from this list. US Agent, you definitely want to save him for the later turns. You definitely don't want to play him out too early. You don't want to be predictable, and you definitely want to surprise your opponent. Mr. Fantastic is awesome in this list just to start prepping him in the middle lane, and then you can follow him up with Moonstone. Luke Cage, you definitely want to save for the later turns by like turn 6 more than likely, or if you really need to, you can play him on curve. Cosmo is just a great tech counter for any situation, so you definitely want to play Cosmo in a certain situation. Diamondback has awesome synergy with this list, especially afflicting negative damage, and she's ongoing, so there's cards that I'll mention that definitely will synergize with her well. Just like Moonstone. Moonstone will definitely add in more negative damage with Diamondback, so they have awesome synergy. Man-Thing, like I mentioned, is a great pairing with Diamondback. You definitely want to play them in the same lane, or you could play them in separate lanes. It really depends on the situation. Ajax, of course, has to be included with Hazmat and Diamondback, so Ajax is a great synergistic piece right there. And then Spectrum is an awesome finisher just to boost all your ongoing cards. There's a lot of ongoing cards in this list, so most of the cards here will get benefit from Spectrum. All right, now let's take a look at my third and final list. So this list is called Silver Diamondback. This is my take on the Silver Surfer, I would say toxic Silver Surfer type of list. And the ideal goal of this list is to throw down as much 3-cost cards on the board as possible, juice them up in power, and then have a last minute burst of power. So for turn 1, Nova, of course, you can start setting him up and be careful again for a lot of counters, but you definitely can run him on curve. Adam Warlock is a spicy pick here. He's definitely interchangeable here as well. You could run in a tech card, but with a new buff, I believe Adam Warlock has great curve. Definitely being able to draw more cards with Adam Warlock is awesome for this list. Hazmat, just like I mentioned in the other lists, you definitely want to save it for the later turns, just like Luke Cage as well. But Luke Cage is a 3-cost card, so he definitely has benefit with Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer, of course, save him for the later turns, maybe turn 5 or 6. Really depends on what you draw, but definitely play on the later turns. Diamondback, you could definitely play her on a lane separate from Sebastian Shaw, especially if you're dealing a lot of negative damage. Diamondback really works with Luke Cage and Hazmat. She should only be really used if you have them in your hand. Killmonger has synergy with Nova, of course, and Luna Snow if you need to get rid of the Ice Cube. Sebastian Shaw is our power piece in this list. You definitely want to run him after Galacta. Luna Snow is pretty much here just to cheat out energy, and she's a 3-cost card, so definitely benefit with Silver Surfer. Wong is here just to be extra greedy, especially following him up with Hazmat or any of these cards here like Silver Surfer. You definitely want to run Wong if you don't suspect like Cosmo or any other counters. So be careful of the counters, because every time when you run Wong, of course, there's going to be counters. Galacta is a greedy card here in this list to juice up cards like Sebastian Shaw or any of the cards here in this list. She's awesome in Surfer. And then we have Sarah. You definitely want to run the newly buffed Sarah. Discounting those 3-cost cards, being able to play 3 of them is awesome on the final turns. And don't sleep on the brand new Sarah. Now let's take a look at the spotlights that are featured with Diamondback. Let's take a look. So Diamondback is featured with Nimrod and Phoenix Force. Diamondback is a Series 5 card, Nimrod is a Series 3 card, and Phoenix Force is Series 4. Nimrod will go down in series with the series drop looming, so he is technically Series 3. So I would say Nimrod and Phoenix Force are very niche cards, but they are definitely worth having in your collection. So I would say a bit niche for both cards, but they are kind of flexible in a way. I don't know how to explain it, but I think both are definitely worth having. For the Spotlight variants, I'm not huge on the Diamondback variant, so I think the base art's good enough. I really like that style better than the Spotlight variant. The Nimrod variant I think is awesome. I love the big face of the Nimrod. I think it's definitely worth having. Phoenix Force, there's so many different Phoenix Force variants that have come out. I think Phoenix Force has definitely better variants, so I would say this one's probably passable. So remember guys, to make sure to have 4 keys before opening in a week. You definitely don't want to regret missing on a card or missing on a variant that you really want. So make sure you have 4 keys. All right, now let's take a look at the brand new section of the video. So this is what I call community predictions. This is a combination of the data that I have compiled from basically asking the community what they thought about Diamondback from the community post feature in the YouTube channel. So I asked the community what they thought about Diamondback. Let's do a tier list based on that, and what they thought about the card in general. I'll be featuring a comment that has the most traction, or what is the best comment that I saw based on the card, and I will feature them in the video. So thank you everyone who participated. Make sure if you want to be featured in the next video, you either join or you can just react to the post that I feature within the week, and then you could be featured in the video. All right, so the community has said 2 stars for S tier. They don't think the card's super strong, but they think A tier with 4 stars is pretty good. So someone in the community named Ross Ashmore has said, I think she's going to be a strong addition to Affliction decks. However, she's going to be a lot of people to bring out to Luke Cage to hard counter her and the rest of the Affliction decks she inspires. I totally agree with this comment. I believe Affliction decks, just like I mentioned in the video, are definitely be a home for her. And again, Luke Cage is a hard counter for her. Totally agree with your statement. And again, if you want to be featured in the next video, make sure you guys reply in the comments for the next community post that I post about the brand new card. And thank you for your comment, Ross Ashmore, and I hope to see more of you guys soon in the next video. Now let's take a look at my star ratings for Diamondback. Let's take a look. So for competitive, I gave her a 4.5 stars. Very strong, right? I believe Toxic is definitely a meta or a archetype that will stay in Marvel Snap. I believe that she's going to be a very strong card, especially being paired up with certain cards like I mentioned. Definitely a very, very strong card in Marvel Snap. For fun, I would say 4 stars. Again, it really depends if you like this type of play style, but dealing negative damage, it could, excite some people. So I think it's a fair 4 stars. Flexibility, I would say 2 stars. Definitely very niche in the homes that she will live in. More than likely, she will find a home, and there's a lot of shells or a lot of like little mini synergies that she works with. So it really depends on how flexible you want to make her, but I think she's going to be very niche at the end of the day. So for future changes, I would say 2 stars is fair for her. I believe she's going to be fine, other than maybe if it gets out of control, then maybe a nerf. but if anything, I don't really see her getting buffed. So I would say 2 stars is fair for her. All right, now let's take a look at my final review of Diamondback. Is she worth a snapper skip? Let's take a look. So for pre-series 3 collection owners, I would say it's a 1 star out of 5. There are a lot of cards that don't synergize with her, or you're going to be missing a lot of cards that don't synergize with her. So I would say it's probably not worth getting because, again, you're going to be missing cards like Ajax, potentially even Hazmat. So there's cards like that that will not work with Diamondback. So I would say it's probably fine to hold back on her. For Series 3 or Series 3 complete owners, I would say definitely 3.5 stars, definitely worth picking up. But again, it's not really necessary, so I would say 3.5 is fine. If you are close to Series 4 or 5 complete, I would say 4 stars is a great rating for her. I think she's definitely worth picking up. I think she has awesome potential there. So for the archetypes that she can work in are Toxic, Surfer, High Evil, or Clog. If you like those type of archetypes, then definitely worth picking her up. So based on those ratings and everything that I have said in the video, I think she is worth a snap. I think she's definitely worth picking up. I think she has a lot of potential of being strong. Maybe she might get nerfed in the future, but the archetype in general is thriving. Toxic is doing very well in the meta, so I would say definitely worth picking her up. So let me know your thoughts on Diamondback. Am I wrong? Did I miss any synergies or counters or some decks that she could fit in? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to build out this amazing community here on YouTube. And don't forget to join the membership if you want to gain some exclusive perks or access to things in the channel. Please do that if you want. And I'll see you guys on the next Snapper Skip. Happy snapping.